one of the things that kind of came to my mind this last week is, as we just went through the mundanity, if you will, of life, is that decisions. We all have to make these on every day. Everything from what are you going to eat for lunch, which sometimes can be quite problematic,
Yeah.
to, and especially now, right, with COVID-19, is what do we even have? So we're getting creative with that, but I don't want to get too derailed. Um, but decisions. About a week and a half ago, week and 3/4 ago, I had to go in and get kidney stones. They blast them with some strange. I don't know how they do it, but you feel like Mike Tyson beat the tar out
Were
of you.
you out? Were you out of sleep?
Oh,
Or
I was out. I
you
was
were?
out for sure, and I like going out. I don't have a problem. So I go out. I wake up and I feel fine, of course, until the juicy drugs wear off. And for the next 4 days, it should be a 2-day recovery at the
Yeah.
worst. It's been 11 days, and I still feel very, very, very painful. I'll put it this way: I've had my appendix burst, I've broken my leg, broken 2 ribs, I've broken my nose, I've had part of my thyroid taken out, tonsillectomy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the gamut
All
taken out of
types.
me. Nothing touches the pain. Nothing of this kidney stone procedure. So I drink a ton of water. I'm not sure why, but my point is that right before the procedure, COVID-19, of course, had reached not at zenith, but it was climbing pretty quick.
Right.
Hospitals were getting full. People were panicking, and I didn't know. I was faced with something. Do I do the procedure now? It wasn't at the hospital per se, but if there were complications, I would have to go to the hospital. But do I go and do it now? Risk the possibility that I'd have to go. And like I said, it's a very simple procedure. It's not like it was anything major, but obviously to me it was more.
Yeah.
But do I go and get it now, or do I wait and see if it gets bigger, it gets lodged inside your body, whatever that means, and then do I also, or do I wait 6 months? What if COVID-19 at that point in time is now there's no beds around? We did, right? We're in the great unknown. And so I decided with all that information, it was still best to proceed.
Right.
So I went ahead and had the procedure done anyway, just not knowing the possibility of which direction. Basically, we become so confident with the things that we're assured of. Our car will start. There'll be food good at the store, toilet paper, the doctor will be available. But now we're faced with these crises, and it's uprooting the comforts. And so a lot of us are faced with discomfort. And how do we make decisions in the middle of discomfort? And I think a lot of people experience that same level of anxiety or confusion or consternation when they're deciding on which EV to pick. Do I do it based on price only? For a lot of people, that's a major driving factor.
Yep.
For a
Price.
lot of people, price for sure. Hey, I don't care if the $75,000 used Model X is the best deal out there. I can't afford that. So they're ratcheting it down. For the next person, maybe they can't afford that, but even still, the best decision for them is the Model 3. And so how does one go about, as you've talked with people throughout time, what do you discover is the biggest motivator or decider or bolsterer that people base their decisions on when it comes to an electric vehicle or any vehicle for that matter? What do you experience, Arturo?
Like you said, I think it's price. I think
Yeah.
price really drives that. And then just the benefit of where you're gonna go. So it's like when you're talking about EVs, like what's really gonna benefit someone to buy an EV, right?
Sure.
So is it gonna be range, or is it gonna be what? I think it's mostly range, man.
Okay, it's range.
Yeah, range.
Sure.
I mean, what was the second part of your question again?
Well, it's basically, what is it that people base their decision on when they're going to go get a vehicle? What are the 3 top categories? And they could be in any position, 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
What are those 3 things that you're talking to your friends, your parents, people out there? What are the 3 top things you think?
I would say it's price.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not very big on looks. So it's like, I think it would be price and what can it do for me long term as far as being an investment, you know? So like my current
Sure.
car, it was only about seven K, but I know it's gonna be an investment because I'm not gonna have to pay a lot of money down in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like opposed to buying an expensive car. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well,
Like
yeah. So you took into consideration the fact that I don't want this to
for me, it's
impact my
price.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, financially, I feel like people buy a lot of cars at a high price because they feel like
Hmm.
they can afford it. But it's like I don't think they really realize the debt they get into. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? When they buy an expensive car. I mean, yeah, man.
How
It's
important
like,
is it? It is a car payment is painful no matter how you cut
yeah,
slice it. 200, 500, 11, 1600, whatever it is.
yeah.
Excuse me. And is it easier to make for you? Is it easier to make a $300 car payment on a car you don't like or a $475 to $500 payment on a car you do like? Which one would be easier for you?
I think the first one because I'm all about like where's my money going to?
Okay, bottom line.
Bottom line's all about where's my money going to? Is it is
Mhm.
it is it an investment? That's just personal from a personal opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Some people do like to spend the extra $200-300 on the better looking car. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like that's because people are trying to impress other people, or I don't know. Maybe they just really do like that car and they don't really like. I don't know. It's just the goals.
Well, you touch on
You know what I'm
something
saying?
because
Talking
I think
about
it's
goals.
typically one of two things, right? Either
Yeah.
A, they are vain and they do want to impress people who don't care, quite honestly, right?
Right.
What's that old phrase? We spend money we don't have to buy things we don't need to impress people who don't care.
Exactly.
And that's possible. But I think for the most part, people buy it because they like it.
Yeah.
And it's easier to pay for something when you actually like it. And when I say like it, what I mean is you find value in it, right? So, for example, a lot of youngsters, I'll say nowadays, I'm not one of them, obviously. A lot of they'll spend an enormous amount of money on shoes. They'll spend, I mean, $400, $500, $600 is not unheard of, right? That's
Yeah.
quasi common. To me, that's beyond absurd because I don't value shoes of that
Yeah.
magnitude. Now, truth be told, I do have a pair of work boots that are about, I don't know, $250, but they'll last me probably 15 years and they make me money.
But they
So,
exactly they have purpose.
so I see the value in those.
Yeah.
But for them, but equally so, their shoes have purpose and value for them. Maybe they're the dope dude on the, and excuse my expression, they get the dope dude on the basketball court. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a value to them. And so I think one of the decision making part of the process for EVs, for life in general, is what is it we value? Is it simplicity? Is it cost factor that I don't have the stress of the extra payment or the money involved with it? Is it the fact that I feel good when I drive this car? It makes me feel a certain way. That's electric versus a gas-powered car. We talked about that a little bit, I think, in our first episode about muscle cars with a gas engine,
Yeah.
or even a diesel engine versus any kind of combustion engine versus, say, a motor of an electric vehicle. So really people have to come to terms with this idea in virtually every decision in life. What is it I value? And even when they go to the store to buy food right now, whatever the case may be, what do I value? Heck, we could go so far as to say, even beyond the scope of the decision-making process for the acquisition of things, but when it comes to right now, for example, the social distancing, is do I value the altruistic belief of the world and this country and the city I live in, this area? Do I value the people enough to say I'm going to make the decision to stay back? And a lot of people, I don't think, even come to terms with cognizantly making that decision of this is what I should and shouldn't be doing because it's, for lack of a better word, it's gooder, right?
Yeah.
It's better for what's going on around. And so, of course, it's a joke to say the word gooder, but this idea that people get to they get the opportunity to be faced with the option of what do I value? And why do I value that? And what am I going to do with this?
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a deep decision every time you go to the store on do you buy iceberg or romaine. That's not my point. I mean, but maybe you look at it and you go, I really value my health. And so maybe right now I'm going to get romaine versus iceberg because iceberg's just full of water.
Yeah.
Doesn't taste, yeah. So
are there certain things that you've been choosing? Like when you go to the grocery store or anything like that you're like, oh man, you know what? I actually value this now. Like now that I think about it. Peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, well, that's a go-to for me anyway. I'm fortunate in that my spouse, she does 100% of the shopping for a multiplicity of reasons, and we've kind of divided and conquered. I don't mind shopping; I'll do it, but I'm typically doing other tasks, etc. Right. So she'll typically do most of it. I don't want to say she enjoys it, but she certainly doesn't despise it the way I do. So, and she's much better at it.
Is she the one that cooks? Is she the only one that cooks?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I do cook, and I'm actually a good cook, but I don't, you know, and for the people out there, females, males, whatever you are, is that it's the daily cooking that is the obnoxious part. It's not the special. Everybody can cook a special meal, right? Those are fun to make. And those are the ones I make. But it's the mundane monotony of, oh, I got to feed everybody again. And that's a challenge. And my heart really reaches out to those folks that especially right now. You know, we talked about this a little bit before, this idea of you've got 2, 3, 4 kids or more shoved into an apartment and you're trying to be creative. You don't want to run to the store. So you're looking in the cabinet and you ask, what's my decision-making process at that? Is I'm looking at my cabinet going, what can I hodgepodge together to make this work?
Ramen, scrambled eggs, some ham.
Perfect. You're good to go. It's like a Hawaiian, Asian, infused.
Yeah, infused.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I definitely understand that. Because, I mean, families, like you said, with more than 2 kids, like, if they do daily dinners, they got to restock food every other day.
Right.
You know, because you can't. I was buying eggs the other day. Mm-hmm. And usually I take two
dozen.
2 dozens. And they don't let you do that anymore. You can only do 1 at a time.
Mm.
I mean, you can go to another grocery store after, you know what I'm saying, and get another one. But
yeah,
if that's not your thought process, it's kind of like you got to go every other day, restock. So yes, I understand what you mean by decision making.
Yeah, and it's just the idea of learning to be creative with what we have and don't have. Yeah. And then, of course, it comes to resources. If you've got people right now who are, quite honestly, their resources have diminished significantly, and maybe they're waiting for their stimulus check. And I mean literally, like, they're not saying, hey, I hope it comes by the end of the month. They're saying it needs to be here, like now. Yeah. Because they're chasing down the mail guy running down the street because they want the stimulus check because it means putting food in their babies' mouths. So, you know, that's a challenge. I was talking to a dear friend of mine who's from another country, and he was sharing with me that in his country, Guatemala, that the area he's from, et cetera, I guess you can only go out from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. After that, they catch you outside, they'll lock you up and throw you in jail. And again, I haven't verified any of this, but I'm confident the source is valid. And you know, it's not like you can go to the store and go, great, I get to have 1 dozen eggs, or I get to have half a gallon of milk. The milk and the eggs probably aren't there. And what is there is very scarce. If places like, what do you call that? The gas station. If the gas station isn't open to get gas to now get to the store, I mean, there's all kinds of things. People have lost their jobs. These are places where, around the globe, where these are or what do you call them? Developing countries, I think is the proper term. Yeah. Developing countries you have, and they don't have the resources of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, let alone a month or 2 months worth of available assets or resources to even begin to go, great, hey, you know what? I've got an extra $600 here. Because in Guatemala, that might buy you a lot. I don't know. $600 for the month, and great. That'll get us through next month. Well, wait a minute. If it isn't there, so this is truly a pandemic that is impacting a lot of things. And I know we weren't necessarily going there on this episode, but it affects the decision-making process of every human being. And what are we going to do as humans, not just now, but in perpetuity? Like as we look down the corridor of time, and in a year from now, when a lot of this is probably, all things being equal, this is probably going to subside. We're all going to go back to life as we know it for the most part, shaking hands again. It'll probably impact some of us. We'll be cleaner, but or more hygienic, if you will, or just aware of it. But for the most part, we're going to return to what's comfortable and easy. But lest we forget this idea of, number one, those who need the help the most. That's a huge impact. And then for ourselves, how do we begin to step back and go, wait a minute, yeah, maybe I don't need to make that decision now of just eating what's in my cupboard because it's all that's available. Maybe we can go out, but maybe eating out of my cupboard is the better choice.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this time that we're going through right now is definitely going to influence a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
As far as decision making, and even to the topic of EV purchasing, like, I feel like them realizing the environment change that this is doing, it might influence the decisions too. Like, you know what? Maybe I should start thinking more green. Like I should maybe go more green, or just stuff like that. I feel like it's gonna do a lot of change. Aspects.
Well, I sure hope so. Yeah, people beginning to look outward more. Where it's not just about what's best for me, myself, and I, but what's good for me. Yeah, I mean, I think intrinsically no one has to tell the child to think about themselves, right? Or you have a small child. What is she for?
She's 2.
Two. Wow. Excuse me. Yeah. So I've got 3 and they're all older now, but no one had to, surely no one had to teach them how to be selfish. I mean, they know it good and well. So, and hopefully as parents, we teach them to monitor that behavior and to move out of it. Some seem to never, ever learn. It's not, I'm fortunate. I feel like mine might have learned, but some people I've got
personality, their DNA, you are who you are.
Well, they were never disciplined enough to show that, hey, that doesn't work like that. Yeah. But the idea that, people can, I think, now begin to look outward. And, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't know that person's story over there. See them or not see them. I don't know their story. Boy, I'd sure like to know their story. Or if I don't know their story, I don't have the opportunity to know their story, maybe I better not just all of a sudden categorize them, maybe like I used to categorize them, because somehow it makes me feel a certain way better. I don't know. But to begin to look outside of ourselves and say, what's going to be better for everybody? And I'm not getting into the political aspect of it, of socialism and capitalism, but just let's move all that aside.
A general idea.
You would just the idea. We're humans. And we can argue from both, assuming those are polars, diametrically opposed ideas, and they are on many levels, but in the middle of that, we're talking about humans. And how do we amalgamate differences of ideas and eventually end at the end goal, which would be the betterment of humanity? And what does that look like? And how can we get there as a people? So I don't think many people would argue with that idea. I think shooting for world peace is probably a little far-fetched, but we can make that an end goal. But on a real base level of everyday practices, what can I do that can impact the life of others in a positive manner? And that's really, I think, the goal that I'm hoping is going to come out of a lot of this. This is terrorizing right now. I think it's fair to say that.
A lot of people do feel that way.
They do.
Yeah, they feel like they're being held back from the truth. Just a lot of things like they lost their freedom. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a way. That's crazy.
Well, and there's 2 ways to look at that, right? And I've shared this also with my son quite a bit, is he and I have some great dialogue, and I love it because he always brings new perspective. He's 20 now. So it's great because they bring a new perspective that you don't always think about. And so sometimes it gets kind of heated, which at the time is uncomfortable, but it's good because it causes me to grow. But one of the things we spoke about was, I said, freedom is a 2-sided coin, isn't it? What is it? There's an old song. What is it? Something like freedom means there's just nothing left to lose. Or freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose.
I've never heard of that. The 2-point thing?
Oh, it's a great song. Yeah, it's been what do you call it? Yeah, it's been sung by a few people. I think Joni Mitchell was one of the first to sing it, but I don't think she wrote it. Yeah, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. and it was sung somewhere around the late 60s, early 70s. But there's a two-sided coin to freedom, and that is we have freedom to and freedom from. And so at least two sides of the coin, there may arguably be even more, is that some people, you're right, have this speculation right now, oh my gosh, I'm being restricted. My freedom, quote unquote, is being taken away from me. Is it? I mean, don't get me wrong, we are being restricted, but is your freedom being taken away, or are you being protected for something even greater? Because your freedom is going to be taken away a whole lot more if we don't respect this little, and we'll pick on social isolation because that's the one thing that people probably argue about, right?
Yeah.
You can't close down my park. You can't close down my beach. Now I can't go there. I'm being restricted. You're taking away my freedoms. Okay. Well, how about we all get COVID-19 at the same time? And now your freedom is completely restricted because now we're all sick at the same time. This is just great. So people sometimes don't get perspective that sometimes being restricted a little bit in some areas of our lives is a breeding ground for actually more freedom in a bigger space. I liken it to even just raising kids again, right? Is if you have a child who's constantly fighting against reasonable rules, right? If you have a child, you're going to put more restrictions on that kid. He's going to fight more, you're going to put more restrictions on them. But the one who learns to live within the boundaries of safety for their own sake, you can't help but allow them to experience more of life. You encourage them to, because you know that they will be smart in their decision-making process along the way. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's all that, what do you call it, police do. They're not bad guys. They're just enforcing what they know, which creates a better society. Again, I understand there are things associated with that.
Yeah, there are other, there's the bad ones, there's the bad apples, but.
Of course, 100%.
But for the majority, I feel
so
like.
With this idea of learning to live within. I'm sorry?
No, I was saying for the majority, like of cops and stuff like that, like it's usually good. You know what I'm saying? Like their intent.
Well, yeah, and likewise for us. I mean, for the most part, contractors are really nice guys trying to do a good job. But you get your bad apple losers here and there that just aren't, they're not up to par. Yeah? And they really and truly are out to scam people. They are. Sorry. It happens in blue collar world, happens in the white collar world, happens in the political world, it happens in the educational world. I mean, it runs the gamut because by and large, people are out for themselves. So again, that comes back to this idea of what are we going to do during this time that's going to be better for the world around us. And I think we're going to learn a whole new way of doing education. I'm convinced of that.
I believe that.
I really do. I think that on every level, I think we're going to realize that it's cost effective to start doing more virtual classes. You can't do with all your classes. You've got your core math classes. Sometimes you need that interactive sometimes, but we're raising a generation of young people where they're so accustomed to working on devices that to them, they can process that interaction that can come via screen time, I'll call it, versus that personal interaction in a professor's office, a teacher's. So I think we're going to find that there'll be a lot more virtual, quote unquote, schools being popped up out of this. I think we may have it as well going more. I already know we have things like urgent care, just things like you can call in for the nurse, you can give them your symptoms and they can ship you medication just for some things. That might expand. I think we're going to realize, and that's only going to help the environment because now you've got people driving less traffic, less impact, less oil. So I do think there are going to be quite a number of positive things, that come out of this. I'm actually, as painful as it is right now, as hungry as all of our stomachs are for whatever that may be. And I mean that in an illustrative sense, not necessarily we are hungry, but that we want to get out. We want to go back to work. We want to continue our job. We want to go to the playgrounds. Our kids are going stir crazy in the house. We're trying to keep them away from screen time because we're trying to give them other, positive things to do, but not the screen time is not necessarily positive, but we're trying to change to help them along this.
To be diverse, right?
Yeah, this is tough right now. It's a challenging time. But to begin to look at, hey, great, what positively is going to be coming out of this? So I'm excited for that. And we talked in the last episode about hope, and it really is this perspective that it can be we as humans can make the world a better place. And I think
Right.
in a lot of ways, as I guess unapologetically and not for a commercial wise, I think EVs are a huge part of that. I really do.
They are. They are.
Uh,
I mean, everything aside, I do believe that too. Like Tesla, I feel like they're gonna do more than cars. They're gonna
Yeah.
be. It's gonna be crazy. I mean, even above my lifetime. Like, I mean, I can't really predict what they're gonna be doing 50 years from now, but I think
Right.
they're gonna change the way people commute, the way people just consume energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a whole.
I think so. And I think more than any of that is they're going to create a stimulant for others to want to jump on board with, hey, if they did it, why can't we? So I'm excited about that.